Alright, for this extra help video, we're going to go through a few problems that are given to us in standard and we need to put into scientific, and then vice versa. But up at the top, I'm going to write myself a little note of things I want to remember. So I want to remember that small numbers have negative exponents, and big numbers have positive exponents. And that relationship works both ways, so you can even kind of put an arrow on either side, because when you're going from one version to the other, you're going to need to look at the exponents and then the number. And then the other version, you're going to want to look at the number first and then find the exponent. So this is a relationship that works every time, no matter which path you are doing. And so let's start with converting from standard to scientific. The first thing I want to do is I want to figure out if these are big or small numbers. And if I have to do a lot of problems at once, I kind of like to do them all semi-simultaneously. So I'm going to go through and label if all these are big or small numbers. And by big, I'm not talking about if there's a negative sign. I'm talking about if it's a big whole number or if it's a decimal. So these first two are big. I can ignore that negative sign and just think about if I had this much money, would that be a lot? Yes. So these are big numbers. And these two are both decimals, and so these are both small numbers. And so I know when I write these two, they are going to have positive exponents. And when I write 3 and 4, they're going to have negative exponents. And so what I need to do to figure out what the exponent is I need to figure out where I want to put my decimal. And my decimal needs to come after the very first number I see, looking left to right, that's not 0. So left to right for this one, the very first number I see is that 3, so my decimal needs to go after the 3. For number 2, the very first number I see is 9. For number 3, the very first number I see is 4. And for number 4, the very first number I see is 8. So now I know where my decimal needs to be for each of these. I need to move it from where it is to where it needs to be. And so all big numbers, they have their decimals at the end, so I'm going to count scoops backwards to where it needs to be, to where I hit the arrow. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I like to make a little note to myself. I know it's really small, but I just wrote 11 down there. I just make a note to myself so I don't forget how many scoops I just did. So now to write it in scientific notation, we have kind of like a template that we want to follow, which you can write down up here if you would like. But we have a number times 10 to another number. And this is the number of scoops. And this one is the starting numbers. So for this first one, we just want to write our starting numbers, and if you have a negative, you want to make sure you don't forget it. So we have negative 3.6, and then I'm out of numbers, so I do my times 10. And since this is a big number, I am going to have a positive exponent, so positive 11 scoops. Number 2, very similar. I don't have a negative out front, but I can write down 9 point. And I told you to only go to 3 decimals, but since this only has 4, I'm going to do 4. It never hurts to give more information than less. So if you do more decimals than 3 points, that's fine. So I'm going to do 8,528 times 10. And then I need the number of scoops. So I'm going to start at the end. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 scoops. And since this is big, it is a positive 9. Now our decimals work the exact same way, except we're going this way. And so when I count my scoops, I see my decimal is here, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when I write my number, don't write this backwards. I don't know why that's a common mistake, but some people write 8.564. But write it in order, left to right. 4.658 times 10. And since it's a small number, this needs to be a negative 8. And then last one, we have a negative out front, so I'm going to write that first, and then 8.26 times 10, and I need to count my scoops. 1, 2, 3. And remember, small numbers need negative exponents. So this is going from standard to scientific, but now we can work backwards as well. And so when you work backwards, you want to start by looking at the exponent, because that will tell you if it's a big or a small number. So you can see both of these will be small. They will both be decimals. And so that means that our decimal is going to need to move to the left to make a decimal. And so in this case, I want to move it 9 spaces. You can rewrite it and move it 9. Sometimes if I'm feeling lazy, I just won't rewrite it and I'll just move 9 as it is. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I know a decimal will be there, and then I have all of these filled in with zeros. So I do need to rewrite my answer so that it is very clear for my teacher where the decimal is. So I have a decimal and then 8 zeros and then 3 5. And it makes sense that there's 8 zeros because we scooped over the 3, so we took one of our scoops to use for the 3, but the rest of them are zeros. Don't get caught up in thinking that 9 means the number of zeros, because it does not. And I promise you with multiple choice tests, that will be an option. There will be one with 8 zeros and there will be one with 9, because that is a common mistake. So this does not mean the number of zeros, it means the number of scoops. The other decimal works the same way. We have 6 scoops. And this one just has a negative out front, so I need to have a negative 0.000008756. Now let's do our 2 big numbers, and so that means their decimals are going to move to the right because they need to be at the end. And so these ones I might rewrite because there's so much going on over here that I don't want to do scoops over it. So I have 9.8, and I'm going to scoop 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And don't forget that negative out front. So we have negative 98000. And see how I don't need a decimal here because it normally goes at the end, but it's unnecessary, just like an exponent of 1 would be unnecessary. And then if you're getting really good at this, you may not even need to draw the scoops anymore. So if I look at this and I know I'm going to need 10 scoops, and it's a big number, so I'm going to go to the right, I can see that I'm going to scoop twice for these 2 numbers. 10 minus 2 is 8, so I need 8 zeros at the end. So I can do 208, that's 2 of my scoops, and then 8 more zeros for the rest of my scoops. So I know this video is a little bit longer than most extra help videos, but there's a lot going on. There's positives and negatives and converting from standard to scientific and then vice versa. But I do hope that this helped you get better at this target.